everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Isabel and I'm a young mom to my little boy Amos. And today I wanted to share with you guys why I chose life. So for anybody who doesn't know, I got pregnant at 19, which is really young to get pregnant. I wasn't married, still living at home with my parents. I was in college. There were many reasons I think the world might have seen for me to choose not to continue with my pregnancy. But before I get started in the story, I really want to just start off with like a huge disclaimer here. My story is not meant to shame anybody else or, I'm not trying to do that. All I want to do is share my story. I'm not like trying to convince anybody or put anybody, try to shame people or anything like that. I just want to share my story and tell you my decision and why I made my decision. And then I'll let God do with that what he wants to do with that. But this isn't like, I understand everybody's situation is different, everybody's reasons are different. This is just what I decided, and this is why. And the whole point of my channel and why I share what I share is because I want people to see that if you get pregnant at a young age, your life isn't over and there's a lot of joys that you can experience. So that's again what I'm trying to share in this video, is just if you do choose life, this is what you have to look forward to, and why I made that decision. And again, so that's all I'm doing. I don't want to like start an argument online or anything. This is just my story, my personal experience that I want to share with you guys. And again, I'm gonna let God do with that what he wants to do. Alright, so let's get started with the story. So just to recap, I found out I was pregnant with Amos at the end of 2019, and I was 19 years old. And it was not an ideal situation. Obviously unmarried, still living at home. And yeah, I wouldn't even say, so yeah, it was a really stressful situation. And when I found out, I was devastated. I couldn't believe that this had happened. I was just really confused and didn't know what to do with myself. There was a lot of crying, a lot of sobbing. But I was very fortunate to have a supportive boyfriend who reminded me that we would do this together and that we could get through this. And no matter how difficult it would be, we would make it work. So with that in mind, I was able to kind of calm myself down, but it still took me a long time to come to terms with this pregnancy. So growing up, I was raised Catholic. I still am practicing Catholic today. We are taught that life begins at conception. So by the time I found out that Amos even existed, he had a beating heart and was very much alive and a real person to me. And I didn't just like, during this time I was actually going through like a kind of like a reversion of my faith. I was really rediscovering what my faith meant and really like what I wanted to be Catholic. And so I explored all aspects of it, including the the discussion of when does life begin. And through all of the research that I did both Catholic and non-Catholic studies about when life begins, I decided for myself and my own decision that life begins at conception. And it's not like I wasn't just doing it because I was raised that way and it was just like kind of ingrained in me. I mean, it was, and I was raised that way. But at one point I made my own decision based off my own research and what I found. And still today, I believe that life begins at conception. And that is amazing and wonderful. And so even when I found out that Amos existed, when I found out that I was pregnant, abortion never crossed my mind, because I already had decided that I would never. And even when I was faced with, speaking of Amos, hang on a second. I'm back. Sorry about that. Amos is hanging out with his dad right now, but he decided that dad apparently wasn't good enough to get him a drink, and so he had to come and scream and call my name until, I guess he wasn't really screaming, it was more a baby yelling, and get my attention until I could get him a drink. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So basically, I had already decided when I decided that life began at conception, I had already decided that I personally would never have an abortion. I don't believe them to be right. And so I was very fortunate that when I became pregnant, it didn't cross my mind. And I understand it's not everybody's situation, because it is an oh so easy out sometimes to what if it just wasn't there, you know. And I definitely struggled with that. I knew that I could never get an abortion. Like I knew that I would never be able to live with myself afterwards, because I believe that life begins at conception, and so I could never do it. But I did struggle with that concept of like, well, what if it just wasn't there? Because before I told my parents or much of anybody, I had told only Curtis and one really good friend. And I spent, I think, 4 to 5 days just in agony over this. Like, I was so scared. I didn't know what to do with myself. I mean, I was going to work and still like living through my life and doing everything normal and trying to act normal, but there was like this haze, like something was wrong, something was up, and I felt so off. And it just literally, I felt like I was going through my life in a fog for the next few days. Like and every time I thought about the fact that I was pregnant, I had to do Hail Marys on like repeat until I calmed myself down, because I was like having little anxiety attacks every single time. Because one, I just couldn't accept or believe the fact that it had happened to me. Like, I'm a teenager still, practically. I'm still living with my parents and I'm pregnant. Like, how could it happen to me? Like, you never think it's gonna happen to you, and then it was here happening to me. And it took me a really long time to process and to accept. Eventually I had to tell my parents, and I was really, really fortunate in my journey of accepting my child, that they were there, and accepting their life. And I was really important in this journey because other people accepted my baby, maybe even before I did. Curtis accepted him right off the bat, and loved this child. And when I told my mom, my parents, well, my mom told my dad, but I told my mom, I told a few of my sisters, and with time, everybody accepted this child and the baby. And well, there's the initial disappointment that I'm 19 and pregnant, and that's not great, and that my life has no plan whatsoever going forward. I didn't really even know what, I had a plan for a degree, but like that was gonna go out the window. I can't, not that I couldn't, I totally could, but it's the uncertainty of your future that's frightening, and you don't know what to do with that. But I was really, really fortunate, and like, unfortunately, this isn't everybody's situation. A lot of people deal with a lot of hate around this, which is so awful, because it's life. And like, even being the person who was pregnant, I just was overwhelmed by the fact that I'm growing a life. Like, I was growing a human being inside my body, and I think honestly that was the thing that scared me the most. It's like, I was growing a human, and that was so incredible and scary and terrifying. And I think even now, married, when eventually I am gifted with another child, it will still be just as terrifying to grow a person. But yeah, as a teenager, that was just terrifying. And I was just so fortunate to have so many people who loved me regardless, who supported me regardless of what happened, And I wish that more people were like how my family reacted to it, because they accepted me as I was, and they accepted Amos. We didn't know what his gender would be, what he would be when he grew up or when he was born, but they all just accepted him. And that helped a lot with my I just there was this weird, again, it was like that haze. I felt like even after telling people, I just felt like I was living every day through a fog of just that constant reminder to myself every time you hit a wave of nausea, or you actually end up throwing up. It's just oh God, I'm pregnant. I am growing a human. And there was definitely I had this deep seated anxiety about it, and just it's almost I'm trying to think of how I can describe this feeling. I wanted to not be pregnant so badly. I felt like I could make it happen, but I couldn't. It just wasn't possible for me. It would be worse if it wasn't. At the same time, I was fearing a miscarriage every day. I couldn't wait to get past the 12 weeks, which is the safe zone. There's no such thing as a safe zone. But I couldn't wait to get past the first trimester and be supposedly safe and have my baby be. The chances of miscarriage go down significantly, but there was no safe zone. But yeah, I couldn't wait for that. I was terrified of miscarrying, but at the same time, I was terrified of being a mom. I was terrified of carrying this child, and I was terrified of when he was going to be born. I just couldn't imagine it. And it seemed like such an impossible future that I was just in this constant mental turmoil and agony, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I remember one day I just called Curtis, and I was sobbing, and I was just I want to not be pregnant. And I think he was nervous about what I might do with that. But I knew I had to carry the baby through the term. But it just felt like I wanted it so badly. I felt like I could have it. But I couldn't. And eventually I had to come to terms with that. It was really, really hard. I prayed about it a lot. I talked to a priest about it, and he really, really helped me through that. I talked to a therapist about it, and I talked to my mom about it, and all of my family members helped me through it. And it took all of those people for me to accept the fact that I was pregnant. And second, the most important of all, to accept it as a gift. That this life was a gift. It wasn't God trying to punish me for all of my sins. It was just a gift. This was God saying, I believe in you. You are amazing, and you will be a wonderful mother, and this is why I have given you this gift. But it took my whole family, which, there are 9 kids in my family. It took my whole family loving me, and a priest and a therapist and my friends and my boyfriend, most of all, loving me and supporting me, for me to accept that I was pregnant, I was going to give birth to this baby, and I was going to have to be his mom. And it was not easy. And I'll definitely do a video sometime on the steps that I took towards acceptance. But through all of that, through their prayers, through my own prayers, and through the grace of God, I accepted I was pregnant, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was going to carry life, and I was going to be a mom. Ultimately, I decided that I was gifted with enough support, and I had a loving boyfriend who supported me and was going to stay with me through this whole thing, and regardless of where our relationship ended up, he was going to be a dad to Amos, and he really wanted Amos. Again, another video that I have coming up, I need to do a video interviewing Curtis on all of this, what happened in this process, because I think it'd be interesting to see his side of it. But yeah, Curtis really, really wanted to be a dad. And while it wasn't our plan at all to get pregnant when we were so young, when it happened, when we got through the shock, and when I was finally able to accept what was going on, we talked about it all the time, how excited we were to meet our baby. And that's amazing. The fact that I was able to go from wanting not to be pregnant so badly, I felt like I could get it. It's like I could wake up and it would be just a bad dream. To getting to the point where we're getting about like 7 to 8 months in. I mean, I was like 7 months pregnant before I truly accepted what was going on. I even had this like relapse right before he was born. Like there's like that like weird mental shift where you like know your baby's coming. And even though I had an induction, it was actually, I think, after my due date, which will pause here for a funny story. After my due date, and I was just feeling really, really pregnant, and like, but I had this like relapse of like, it wasn't real. It was never going to happen. I was like in this nightmare, and I was never gonna be a mom. Like, I was not gonna be a mom. But it was kind of different in the sense that it was like fear that this was all a nightmare. I remember I was baking because when I get upset, I like to bake. And so I made muffins and I think I made some cookies and I was gonna make a different type of muffins. I was gonna make some bread. Like, I was baking all of these things and it was almost midnight. And my mom came downstairs and found me in the kitchen and was like, all right, what's going on? Because I was gonna do all of this baking and she would have, if she hadn't woken up, she would have woken up later on. At that time, she would have woken up in the morning, as she usually does, to find like a plethora of baked goods in her kitchen, all because her daughter was freaking out about being a mom. But yeah, so I had that relapse. Um, but before that, around 7 months, I started to get really excited for Amos. And I started to be able to focus on the joys that he would bring me. Some big things that helped me do that were I knew that by the time I had him, I was going to be 20. So my birthday was April, so I was actually 20 for a good deal of my pregnancy. So I knew I would be 20 years old, so I wouldn't be a teenager anymore. Something about that made me feel a little better about it. The fact that I would have the support of my family helped a lot, and my family actually went above and beyond so much as they converted a room to be like a little apartment for me and Amos. So when he was born, he had his whole nursery set up, and that was huge. Like, being able to help be part of setting that up and having my own room and my own space with Amos there was huge. So yeah, and the biggest thing though is that through the love of other people and just from my own knowledge, I mean, I'm the third in 9 kids, so I helped take care of a lot of my younger siblings. So I was not unfamiliar to babies. I also have nieces and nephews that I helped take care of, and so I'm not a stranger to infants or small children. And so as I began to accept the fact that I was pregnant and that I was going to be a mom, my confidence built a little bit in the fact that I knew I could do this. It would be different. It would be hard. It was going to be a struggle. Like, I was not a stranger to that. I had watched my mom do these things and be absolutely exhausted. But I knew I could do it. And I knew I could do it because I was going to have help. I wasn't going to be alone, which is so, so important. You need a support system. So, with all of that going on, like I said in the beginning, from the very moment that I knew Amos existed, that he was alive, he had a beating heart. And like, it still makes me teary to think about going into, oh my God, I'm gonna try not to cry here. Going into the doctor's office, they ask you when you go in for your first appointment if you intend to keep the pregnancy. A little shocked about that. It startled me, but I emphatically answered yes. Yes, I'm keeping this pregnancy. And I remember the doctor asking, this came as a bit of a surprise to you, huh? And I was like, yeah, it was really shocking. And then she asked, like, do you intend to keep it? And that was the first step. You know, I was 8 weeks pregnant, and that was the first step to accepting my pregnancy when she asked. And it was just like a shock of like how emphatically I just answered yes, I'm keeping this baby. And it was almost like I was like protective, like she might take him from me. But I got to hear his heartbeat, and it's just like, it's huge because you hear the life that's living inside of you, And that was just amazing. It was an absolutely beautiful moment. I don't want to cry. Like, it still just makes me teary every time I think about like that moment of just hearing him. And he was like this adorable little bean, and he was like wiggling around, and it was so cute because the doctor actually thought that I was not as far along as I was, because she couldn't get a good image when she was doing the ultrasound of him. She was like, it looks like you're about like 5 weeks, but I wouldn't say 8 weeks. And then all of a sudden he did a little wiggle and he like shifted how he's positioned. And she was like, oh no, you're measuring 8 weeks. And he was much bigger than we thought because we could like only get a small portion of his body visible. And then he like wiggled, and then he spent like the rest of the ultrasound just wiggling around, moving, and it was so cute. And it just melted my heart to just see him. Like, that was my child, and that was just, it was amazing. Like, there are no words. So if you're ever on the fence, go get an ultrasound. It's amazing. We are so lucky to have that technology, to be able to hear our child's heartbeat and see them moving, being alive. And it was an amazing experience, and I was so glad for it. And I looked forward to all of my ultrasounds. I was so excited. So very much by the end of my pregnancy, I was very sure of my choice for life. And I knew that I had a lot of hardships. Like, this was not going to be easy, and it wasn't. It was so hard. But I also knew I had a lot of joys coming my way. And I cannot even begin to describe the amount of joy that Amos has been in my life. He has been a huge frustration at times, especially right now. We're going through a sleep regression, it seems. He just has all of a sudden like been getting up a lot at night. It's just, I think he's just needing less sleep. So it's been a huge frustration, but he wakes up and he smiles at me and he calls me mama, and like, he just came over to ask me for a drink because that was important to him, that I got his drink. I didn't end up getting his drink. I just brought him over to where the kitchen was, and Curtis got his drink. But the fact that he wanted to come and ask me for it, you get that privilege of being the most important person in their life for so long. And just, it was hard to wake up in the middle of the night to feed him, but he smiled and wiggle around, and he would fall asleep in my arms. And it was just, there is no experience in the world that is like that experience. To grow a human being, be the most important person in the world to them, and have them love you unconditionally. There is no experience. There's just nothing to replace that. It is unique in its own way, and it is beautiful. And I have never regretted my decision for life. It was, again, like a really hard journey, but he's wonderful. He's almost 18 months. He's going to be 17 months in a few days and be 18 months in March. And he is an incredible human being. He runs around, he gets into everything, but he's so smart. And he loves to laugh. He loves books. He loves to read. He will bring you books to read. We just spent a whole afternoon today playing with rice and pom-poms and using different measuring cups to scoop them into different containers, and it entertained him for an hour because he was just amazed by what he could do with this measuring cup and all of the different ways he could mix the rice and the pom-poms. And I can hear him right now out in the hallway just playing with the shoes and the things in the closet and trying to put them on, and his little voice is so precious. Oh my god, when he started talking for the first time, his first words, he has the cutest little voice, and I love it so much. But yeah, I've never regretted my choice. It has been a wonderful choice, and I love Amos so much. To say again, this story is not meant to shame anybody. This is my story. Everybody's situation, everybody's life is different. I understand that I was very fortunate in my situation, and my whole story turned out to be wonderful. It has a very happy ending. It's still quite in the beginning of my story. And I hope that it can bring joy to others, and that by sharing my life story and by sharing Amos's smiles and his joy, that I'm able to bring joy to others and peace to those who find themselves pregnant at a young age, or just in any state of life and have found yourself with an unplanned pregnancy. So if you like my videos, please consider subscribing, and please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me out. If you're also interested in more daily content, you can follow me on my Instagram, which is linked down below. Thank you for watching.